All right, Big Man. Today is Thursday. It is September 1st. I believe it is September 1st. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. I have an in-studio guest today. I am joined by Kyle from the Black. I knew I was going to screw that up.
I'll help you. Black Box Record Club.
Thank you. Do people do that ever or no?
Yeah, goes back and forth.
I'm just the biggest moron who does it.
I'm used to it, though. My last name, Matthiesen, that gets butchered as well.
That gets butchered?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kyle, from the Black Box Record Club at that time.
There we go.
So we did our draft a couple weeks ago, the best album cover. You reached out, and you wanted to talk about the vinyl revival. And I was like, hey, that sounds interesting. So that's what we're going to do today.
All right, let's do it. And thank you for having me, Eddie.
Yeah.
Big fan of the Dog Walk. I think you do a great thing here. So, really happy to be here.
Appreciate that.
And then I think the real impetus for me reaching out was White Sox Dave getting kind of hammered a little bit by you guys and then in the comments as well. However, I reached out specifically because within the vinyl community and the music community in general, there's a big problem with music snobs, vinyl snobs, that type of thing. And I think the space should be welcoming to all people, even people like White Sox Dave, who has no idea, that the industry exists. So I'm happy to come on and give a little explainer about what's going on in that part of the music industry. There's been a huge resurgence over the last 15 or so years. It went from, an industry that was really almost extinct to just, having a very unlikely rise, especially in the age of streaming. And let's chat it up.
That's great, Kyle. So actually, White Sox Dave's here. We might have to grab him at some point.
That sounds good to me.
And see how that goes.
I actually met White Sox Dave on the field at the Dead & Co. shows.
Oh, really?
He was a very fun concert buddy for a couple minutes. Very kind guy.
I'm sure he was completely sober.
I may have assisted in him not being sober.
Oh, no shit.
But,
wow. We might have to bring him in and be like, hey, do you remember this guy who got you fucked up at Dead & Co.?
Yeah, well, it was, I think everybody made it out okay. Yeah.
I think they did, so you could do that.
Yeah.
So, all right, how'd you get into the game? How did vinyl start, or what's the word? You guys are on Irving and Ravenswood, right?
Yeah, we're on Irving and Ravenswood.
Mm-hmm.
So I started my company my last year when I was in college at IU Bloomington, Go Hoosiers. And I started it basically because I was into music. I like it as a hobby. I play guitar, that type of thing. And I was looking to start some project. And I was looking around developing my early vinyl habit as a hobby. And there's a lot of, sellers going on, selling records on eBay, on a website called Discogs. That's a market. So I got in at first selling used records. And then I looked into like a subscription box club type of endeavor. Subscription box clubs exist for a lot of things, Dollar Shave Club, that type of thing. Send a box to somebody in the mail every month. In this case, I thought it'd be a good idea to do it with vinyl records, as I noticed that the trends were pointing upwards. And the hobby was kind of getting this, renewed interest, both for the old classic stuff and then the new artists as well. We're all releasing stuff on vinyl. So I started Black Box Record Club out of my college house that I share with 5 guys. And basically what we do is we send out 2 records per month to all of our members in the mail. And each box is curated every month specifically according to our members' interests. So when you sign up, you can fill out a whole taste profile, get as detailed as you want, but let us know your favorite artists and genres. You can connect your Spotify account, stuff like that. And then using all that info, we send out 2 records a month in the mail that are curated as like surprise selections to each of our members. It was always very small when I started it for a couple of years. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to be able to start working on it full time in December of 2020. And our office is local here on Irving Park and Ravenswood. Great area, right off the Brown Line stop there. And it's been, going great ever since. And we're also doing pop-ups all around the city. We have a summer residency at the Salt Shed, the new music venue. We're at Beguile the first Sunday of every month doing pop-ups there, Beguile Brewing. And you'll probably find us at if you go check out any like vintage markets around the city, there's a good chance you might see us there.
That's a cool concept. So what percentage of the people end up buying? Do they have a buy option or no?
Everything is bought. So you own the records that we send you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not they have to give them back. That's okay.
No, yeah, you it's not like the old Netflix
That's
model.
right.
Yeah,
For some reason, when you said that in my brain, I was like, oh, they just get it back and then they decide if they want to buy it or not. So
yeah, no, a lot of people have that assumption too. But no, it's you own everything that we send you. And if we send you something you already have, we do free like swaps, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. That's a good concept. That's really cool.
Thanks.
Is it like what's probably the most challenging part of being in the vinyl game?
So right now, and we can get into this, but the demand has absolutely spiked while the production can't really keep up.
Yeah.
So a new album comes out, even from like really big name artists, and they have trouble putting out the album on vinyl. The wait time is like 9 to 12 months, even for like major artists to, put in an order at one of the pressing plants.
Really?
And get it back. And that kind of gets exacerbated because you have some of these mega releases, like the Taylor Swift, the Billie Eilish, the John Mayer stuff. And those, are in such demand by so many, people all over the world that they get shot to the top priority at these pressing plants and basically backlog, everybody
other
else.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah. But, in the end, it's still good that there's that much demand, but it's just, it's tough. Production is tough for new releases and the wait time. And also if a certain title goes out of stock, that's really popular, for it to get like restocked by the record label can take like 9 months. And that's really tough if, there's like a great Jimi Hendrix album that people love and I send it out a lot and that goes out of stock and I'm, not going to see it again for like
Damn, they're pushing Jimi Hendrix aside, huh?
Yeah, even Jimmy.
That's kind of fucked up. I feel like the people who were like born on vinyl, they should always still be there. They shouldn't be getting bumped for these new people.
I'm telling you, man, the Swifties.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So it was literally just announced. She just announced she's releasing a new album.
I saw that. And that'll, I have no idea if her record label approached, the vinyl producing plants ahead of time to give them a warning, but that might cause another backlog for, all
but
the
is
other
that
artists.
like monster for you? Like, are you fist pumping when you see that? Or like, oh, nice, we got a new, like.
Yeah, definitely. Although sometimes the Taylor Swift stuff, we'll wait to see how this is priced. Sometimes her stuff can be very like out of my price range because I have a set subscription price point that, we try to deliver good value for our members whenever possible, but some stuff is just like too expensive for us to work with.
And she might be like, her fan base just wants to buy her outright, right? Like they might not be.
Yeah, I would agree with
maybe not.
It goes back and forth, but a lot of people that have record collections they just want a nice, well-rounded collection. They're maybe not as looking for just like one specific artist or even one specific genre. They kind of just want to have a well-rounded collection of cool stuff that their friends can check out and they can listen to.
But even that though, like this Midnight's album, I think that's what it's called. That's going to be like still 9 months wait time. Yeah,
it depends if they got, if they reached out on the back end, or they also could. I mean, it's Taylor Swift. I'm sure that the record labels could be like, I'm sorry, but you're going to put everything else on the back burner. Yeah. If you want to keep your relationship with Taylor Swift, you're going to move us to the front of the line.
Yeah, for sure.
So that happens. But, all in all, it's the trends keep going up. I actually got a little note sheet here with some numbers.
Beautiful. We like notes. Yeah. I'm pro note. People are like, oh, I like to, not have just, make sure you say everything because it'll be on your notes.
Yeah, especially because we got, a lot of numbers I might spit out.
That's beautiful.
And I have a screenshot of a graph I can maybe send over to you guys if it helps to overlay that.
Yeah, we could throw that over on the video.
Yeah, so we'll pivot now. Let's talk about what people refer to as the vinyl revival. So basically, vinyl is 100 years old. It's it's been around for the majority of modern music, and it grew in popularity. In the late 70s, it was the dominant form of how to listen to music, and that let's just do some numbers here. So like in the late 70s, every year they were selling like 350 million units of vinyl. That's how everybody listened to records.
That was it,
and they were cheap then too. Then you have the introduction of cassettes. And then it becomes CDs, and over time there are these alternative forms of media that you can listen to music on. And that's by the end of the late 70s, the vinyl industry begins a decline. So these are just some pretty drastic numbers to show how in danger the industry was from completely dying out. And that includes these production facilities, which are very, very expensive to maintain and to build up. So if the demand goes down, people are going to stop putting money into like funding these production facilities and all the equipment that you need. So in the late 70s, 350 million units are being sold in the US. Crazy, crazy high number. Then by 2006, we're down to only 900,000 units a year.
Whoa.
So it's a huge, and then if you look at the graph that maybe I'll send you, there's a period between like 1990 and 2006 where it's just like the smallest, flattest line you could ever think of compared to how high it once was. You can barely see it. But then in 2006 is when the sales for the first time start to go back up, and it's really interesting. I think this is kind of the most interesting thing about it is because it's not like streaming had a decline. Streaming exploded from 2006, starting with iTunes and stuff, and now Spotify and all the streaming ways Every single album is on streaming services for the most part. People love streaming. The habit has absolutely exploded. I love vinyl, and I also love streaming. I have Spotify Premium, and I stream all the time. But it's interesting because in the time that 2006 was the dip or the lowest part of the vinyl production numbers, and then streaming picks up, but so does vinyl. And year after year, there's been between like 10 and 50% growth in the demand ever since 2006 every year. And I think it's really because even though streaming has exploded and that behavior has, become massively popular, the more and more it became the dominant way to listen to music, the more and more people appreciated kind of the counter to that. So they want something that is physical because the way they normally listen to music, there is no physical interaction. And they also, I think the people that buy records right now, there are a lot of audiophiles. I work with some audiophiles, but the majority of the reason behind this vinyl revival is I think people are buying it more as like an art piece, something they can display on their walls, on their desks, show their friends. And the purchasing behavior there it's more similar to how you might buy like a poster or like a t-shirt of your favorite band or just, bands that you're interested in. And that is really what I think is driving the massive increase in demand. And then we'll bust out another number here. So every year since 2006, where it was at, a lowest, 900,000 units being sold in the United States. That's, low compared to where it once was. Every year there's been between like a 10 to 40% increase since 2006. But then in 2021, the highest increase in that period was a 50% increase. So, and 50% increase, which is huge compared to the other years. And now in the US, we're selling 47.1 million units per year. So it's not as high as the 350 million as the...
but that's to be expected. That was the only way, right? So pretty much the only way?
Yeah.
At the time, so it's to be expected.
Yeah, not as high as what it once was, but we're talking like a 45-fold growth from where the lowest point was in 2006. And, overall, it accounts for roughly like 5% of total music revenue. And 5% is still a small number because, obviously people still use streaming. But 5% of, the trillions of dollars that are being spent on, in the music industry, it's a good little chunk. And, other companies like my own are able to kind of live pretty happily in that space.
That's awesome, man. And I'm sure the producers and everyone is happy about this revival because once that, even the CD money kind of got swallowed up like this is another revenue stream open again for them. So
absolutely. And it is among the most, kind of beneficial on a margin, perspective way to support an artist. Because, we all hear the stories about how Spotify kind of screws these acts. And it is, one of the ways that they see the biggest cut. And so if you're trying to support a specific artist or genre, it's good to, get into vinyl because, they're looking to make money that way as well.
Do you happen to know those margins a little bit or a rough idea of how it works?
Yeah. I mean, so here's basically how it works. You have an artist that is either employed or has their own record label. The record label then manages the production of the records with the pressing plants. The pressing plants are, like I said, they're under huge demand right now, and they're all over. There's some in the United States, some in Canada, some in the UK, France. And the record labels then approach the pressing plants, make a run of, it could be like 1,000 units for, that level of band, could be 100,000 units for Taylor Swift. And the pressing plants then produce the records. Once they're ready, ship them back to the record label or to some distributors. And then they then have relationships with companies like mine or record stores, or even like you'll see records at Walmart. And so the record labels and the distributors then send the records out to the retail space or the e-commerce space. And that's how the pattern of distribution works. As far as the margins, I mean, I'm not exactly sure, but they're probably getting like over 50% back on their upfront investment, which is a really good margin. Especially,
I'm not even in the game. What will this Midnight Taylor Swift album go for? How much will it be for the consumer, typically?
Oh yeah, it's probably going to be like $40. I'd presume. And then there's going to probably be like a deluxe version that she only sells through like her website, which maybe has like 2 bonus songs, or maybe it's in a specific color. Mm-hmm. Those type of things. But yeah, that's what I'd guess. That's what I'd guess it's at.
That's good. So $40, and then like that's definitely a bigger cut than she's getting from somewhere else.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Unless I don't know, Spotify definitely backed with the Brinks trip for her. I would say.
I'm sure she's got a favorable deal. But
she got on.
Yeah, and I think, it is encouraging that all of these new albums, from Taylor Swift to just like, I really like a new band, the Black Pumas. Their record, blew up, and they did a great job of making sure that vinyl was available at an affordable price. We send that out a lot. It's all over record stores, and it's good to see bands that are releasing new music making vinyl a priority in their album releases. And that's what's happening, and I think it's good for everybody.
So the Black Pumas, what was their going for? Do you know?
Yeah, they had it much more affordable. Probably like $25 is where you could find that.
Now, am I crazy? I remember back in the day, I feel like it was a new release. I feel like it was just a baseline price for pretty much everyone. I didn't realize it was much, which...
Yeah, it really should be, but then you have the bands and the artists, Taylor Swift, so like the Rolling Stones, they can charge higher because they know that, they're just massively popular. And to their credit, they also, put in added benefits into the vinyl version. Totally. Cool poster inserts, colored vinyl, higher quality vinyl. So, there definitely is variance in how much an album costs.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just remember and I know CDs are different, but it was like early 2000s, like $21.99 or whatever it was.
Yeah. I think they're moving away from that a little bit. And then speaking of like the costs, I have some notable kind of like eye-opening costs for records. Most of these are like resale based. So one interesting one is that, so there's this Beatles album, Yesterday and Today. In 2013, a used copy sold for $125,000 for this one album. I think it was released in 1966. And the reason that it's, that's an absurd price, like for anything. So, but the reason it was so sought after and justified that price is because when it originally released, the Beatles tried to be pretty edgy, and the album it's referred to now as like the Butcher's cover, and the original album cover basically had these like baby dolls that were sliced up and body parts and like fake blood all over the Beatles. I don't really know what was going on in their mind at that time, but probably trying to be edgy and different. They originally released it in 1966. This is still the Beatles in like the black and white suits. They're trying to, the powers that be want them to be very like family friendly.
Yeah, that sounds
13-year-old girls need to listen to this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they released this album that basically depicted them as bloody butchers. It got on the market, then like immediately the people that were more business minded in the Beatles organization were like, cut it off, stop that. We're getting a new cover. And then so fast forward 60 years or whatever, that version of that cover is extremely valuable because it was only released for like a very, very short amount of time. So that's how you have an album selling for $125,000.
Super rare.
Which is, it's bananas. I can't imagine having that much money to like throw at an album, but good for that person. Another notable one, you might have heard of this. Did you hear about the Wu-Tang album that was sold to the tech bro?
Dude. Yeah, that motherfucker.
So that motherfucker.
Ultimate villain, that guy.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine a guy that just steps into it more.
That guy, yeah.
He paid $2 million for their 2015 album. And the reason why it went for that much and it was sold at auction is because they only made one copy. So that goes back into like how albums get priced over time. It's all about scarcity. If something is mass produced, even if it's old or a good album, it's really not valuable. But we got the tech bro guy buying the Wu-Tang album for $2 million, which is absurd. Actually, you could fact check this. There's an absurd clause in that contract that I was reading about where it basically says anybody that buys this, we, Wu-Tang, have the right to physically steal it back. But it can only be done by members of the Wu-Tang. And I'm not kidding you here. I think they also said it can only be done by members of Wu-Tang or Bill Murray. So really? Yeah. So I don't know. It probably was like a little gag, and that's funny. But technically, per the contract that Martin Shkreli paid, the members of the Wu-Tang or Bill Murray can break into his home, steal it back, and they would not be legally or financially liable. So that might be a movie. I think
I love that. That's that's like Willy Wonka type shit.
Yeah, it totally is.
I'm all about that golden, just random weird caveats. That's hilarious. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I knew there was one up one, and I knew he had it, but I did not know that stipulation.
I didn't know about it either. Then I read about it, and I thought this needs to be a Hollywood movie. This needs to be the Wu-Tang's breaking into the Martin Shkreli. I don't know if he lives in a mansion or whatever, but
did he get out of jail yet? I think he's still in jail. No,
I don't know. I don't know. He comes up in the news like once a year for some outrageous thing, and I mean, he probably should. I mean, what did he do?
He was just juicing.
He was juicing. He didn't he spike the price of like an AIDS medication or something like that?
Something crazy. Yeah, I can't remember. Oh, well, go do your own research. All whatever.
Absolutely.
Some alleged may be there, but whatever.
And, And then one more interesting thing, not as crazy as the $2 million thing, but an example of what makes a record valuable on the secondary market. For example, the 91 release from Nirvana. Which was, what's the title? With the baby on it. Nevermind. Yep. So that came out in 1991 during the absolute floor of the vinyl industry, when the vinyl industry is, almost dead.
Yeah.
As such, bands were not releasing records on vinyl at that time. Nirvana decided to do a small run. I don't know how much they did, but how much they produced, but very, very small, and they probably likely just sold it at their shows, their merch tents and stuff. But that record now, if you were lucky enough to get that in the early 90s, that's very, very valuable as well.
Really?
So that one can go for up to $3,000 on the resale market. So again, that's a very, there's a good return on that record, because at that time nobody was pressing records. So the big bands that were coming out in that grunge era, a lot of them were not released on vinyl. Mm-hmm. So the ones that were are very, very, very valuable.
That's interesting. Hey, let's take a quick break from talking to Kyle. Let's talk about the Game Time app, the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. Listen, just because summer's over doesn't mean that concert season is done. All the closed venues are going to be up and running, so go check out a concert, and more importantly, go check out the Bears. I mean, I know it might not be the best season, but Chicago Bears tickets are going to be pretty cheap on the Game Time app, as will Blackhawks tickets certainly, and the Bulls are going to be competitive. So go check out a Bulls game, and make sure you're using the Game Time app when you go do it. Game Time is a ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last-minute deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows, and they guarantee the lowest price. So download the Game Time app, go to the account tab to create a login, and redeem code DOGWALK for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Download Game Time, last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. It's that simple. Really, just download that app, hop on there, skim around, see what seats they're going for, and pay less when you use the Game Time app. So go do it and have fun at your concert or your event. All right, let's hop back in the interview. And now, you said most people are just buying it because of the art, though, right? Like it's like another collector's item.
Yeah.
Because of if I love AC/DC, I'm getting the shirt, I'm getting the record, I might get the pinball machine. They're getting everything. So, at what point do you think that, or will it ever happen, where these companies kind of do what baseball cards are doing, and they make these rare items so people want them again? Do you foresee that ever?
Yeah, well, I think you're looking at that kind of right now, where everybody who's releasing an album is making sure that it's out on vinyl. So that's why I think 50 years from now, you shouldn't buy the Taylor Swift album and keep it unsealed, hoping that in 40 years it will have a massive value on the resale market, because they're going to produce a ton of those albums, so they're not going to be valuable. And that's kind of why I get approached by a lot of people, and I have to kind of deliver bad news, but everybody has the grandparent or the parent that wants to unload a box of old records.
Yeah.
It's not going to be valuable.
Yeah, it's not worth anything.
Definitely go to a local record store. They'll offer you just,
Unless you got the butcher.
Unless you got the butcher one. So that's the one thing. But those are so rare, and it's it's almost not worth looking through if it's just a random person's collection. But you could get lucky, but a lot of people approach me thinking they're going to get thousands of dollars for an old collection in a basement. And in reality, the Elvis records were pressed millions and millions of times. It's not a valuable item to have an old Elvis record unless you have a very unique first pressing, something like the Beatles title that we just discussed.
And are you familiar with the baseball card market and how they change everything?
Loop me in a little bit.
A little bit. So essentially, the way I understand it is, back in the day, same thing, like Upper Deck or something. So one of those companies were just mass producing everything, and nothing was worth anything. There was just the market was flooded.
Okay.
And now they're basically making it hey, we're only making 500 cards of Mike Trout this way, and it's and now the whole market is based on everything's numbered. So if it's if they're making this, Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish album, we're only making, 3,000, and there's like a finite number, and then that's why you like controlling the market and how many are out there, which is interesting. I don't know if that would be good or bad for your business, but it would be interesting for vinyl as a whole, since it is kind of just a collector's piece. And I know there is an advantage to the audio as well.
Yeah,
but I don't know. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I do wonder. I don't really know what direction it's going to go in, but right now, just the pressing plants are super backed up because of this new demand in it. And, I think that the problem that's immediately facing the vinyl industry is that we just need more pressing plants in existence.
I mean, do you know how many closed up shop in the 90s when all this went
virtually all of them. I mean, and so a few have, gotten back up, but the equipment costs so much money, and you go into this kind of phase. So it would cost millions of dollars to set up a new pressing plant. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people look at the vinyl industry and kind of, even though with this 15 years of crazy growth, the industry is 45 times larger now than it was in 2006. A lot of people still kind of approach it thinking it's a fad and it's going to drop off. Mm-hmm. So you don't have that kind of investment ready to go behind, putting up more pressing plants. If somebody's a billionaire listening to this, I think that would be a good monetary venture for anybody to open up a new pressing plant, because it's a huge problem in the industry right now, and that would really make more albums available at a better price for the consumer. And so that's my plea to any of the billionaires out there.
If anyone's listening, if you're a billionaire listening too, you this podcast, if you want to do something on here, it's available as well.
Yeah, you throw up a Billy. Yeah. Eddie can have half. Yeah. Black Box Record Club can have half.
Exactly. Yeah. We're in for that.
Yeah.
But is there like do you have one that you do business with predominantly? Like, are there a couple big ones that are kind of anchoring it?
There are a couple big ones. I don't work directly with pressing plants. I work with record labels.
Okay.
They work with the pressing plants. There's a huge operation out of Memphis. That's probably the biggest in the U.S. In terms of pressing plant size, but they're all over mm-hmm. Europe and the U.S. There's just not that many of them. They're very, very spread out.
Nice.
And that's why sometimes I'll send out records to members, and there's a sticker on the back that says like "Made in the Czech Republic," and they think it's like a sketchy product, and it's like, no, like that's a completely like verified by an official release from the official record label and band. But sometimes these bands need to go to the Czech Republic because that's the only pressing plants where they can get it produced. And so that's the issue facing the industry right now, and hopefully it gets relieved.
Now, with this happening, do you ever foresee a revival in CDs?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's a market for that. I don't think so, just because of the size. I mean, I think that the reason why vinyl is popular is because it's an antithesis to streaming, and mm-hmm. people, even though like myself, I love streaming, I also love vinyl because it's the most opposite way you can experience the same music. So instead of all digital, physical, something you can look at, touch, open it up. There's cool inserts, maybe like a little poster on the inside or lyrics written out. They also are making really, really cool colored vinyl nowadays. So instead of the standard black, a lot of albums are being released in like a swirl of blue and green or like all white. So that's just a cool kind of art piece that I think is one of the primary drivers behind the resurgence of the industry. But then on top of that, there is an audio experience about records. I'm not personally like an audiophile. There are people who will talk your ear off about like how it's necessary that you have to listen to it on wax, all that type of stuff. If you're doing that, I believe you that it is a better just purely audio experience, but the amount of money you have to sink into your speaker system is crazy. Yeah. Not realistic for most people.
Now, is there a certain album where you personally, not being an expert, can tell the difference?
Honestly, no. I'm not. No, I don't have that trained of an ear, and even the people that say that they can, I'm skeptical. There is a charm to hearing the needle. The cracking of the needle, though.
Totally.
Like that's a cool charm. Yeah, that's very classy. And even if you look at like commercials now, there's always there's like a bourbon commercial that's all over Hulu or something. They put the soundtrack on the needle and like you hear the little crack.
For sure, man.
So it's been kind of adopted by, entities that have determined this is a cool looking and sounding experience. And I agree with them in that sense. And it's also fun to, just put on a record, listen to it all the way through. Mm-hmm. No shuffle. You're not jumping back between different artists. It's one complete experience, and it kind of takes you back into a time when the whole album experience was more like thoughtfully planned out by each of the artists and bands. Like they really put a lot of attention into making sure an album was complete with like high energy, slow, and take you on a journey throughout the album. That's an experience that's been a little bit lost with the way people consume music nowadays, but it's fun to go back and listen to albums in the way they were originally designed to be heard.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I don't know, really got me thinking now, because movies obviously are so popular too. Like, do you think some days the DVDs or the VHSs will come back?
Yeah, there is a market for collecting, the highest quality, like Blu-ray versions of these movies.
And do you guys do anything with that or no?
No, we don't. It's just not our space, but I definitely think that the habits are similar between people who collect movies and people who collect vinyl. I think also, it's funny that you bring that up. The movie industry is interesting, and I've seen renewed calls for people to invest in physical forms of movies and shows. Because did you follow the story about HBO Max? Like
with Warner Brothers?
Yeah, they removed, I think definitely the Batgirl movie. I don't know if that was a movie or a show. They prevented that from being released. They also went back and released or removed like content from their old like classics catalog. So, we're in this environment now where these big mega corporations are in control of every movie and show that you love. And as we see with the HBO thing, they might make a decision in their financial interests to completely eliminate it, or to remove stuff from it that maybe isn't as tasteful today as it once was.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, if you're somebody who wants, a collection of great movies released, or that you can view in the way as they were when they were originally released, it's probably in your interest to invest in a physical copy of that. And I think that will have an impact on the movie and TV show space, where people are more interested in buying.
That's a very good point.
Yeah,
that's a very good point, because you see it now where it's like, I think the last thing I saw people complain about was they can't find some old Kevin Smith movies. Like, it's not on any streaming service. You can't buy it anywhere, and it's like there's only physical copies. So I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, and I love Always Sunny. There are episodes of Always Sunny that they're removed from Hulu. Now, you can still buy them digitally, from what I understand, but that's only one step away from them being completely gone forever. For sure. So that type of thing is going to encourage more people to invest in physical media in the movie space, for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know if you, speaking of that too, Matt Damon was recently on Hot Ones.
Yes.
And they asked him, like, why aren't movies, like, why is there so many reboots? Why are movies like, it's every fucking Marvel or Star Wars or everything. And he just basically said, like, when we lost the DVD market, like, we just got crushed, where it's like that was part of our big thing, was the box office and DVDs. Once that went away, like the $40 million, the $50 million, the $80 million comedy, like, you just couldn't do it anymore, because you got to bank on getting that money back at the box office. And back in the day, it was the DVD space would just cut it in half. So
yeah, it seems I could see how that would just drastically change how movies get funded, because it's a whole, and just think back to like when we were kids, like we all had just awesome DVD collections.
Yeah,
dude,
yeah.
I remember, this is kind of like out there, but I remember I have a funny story about like large DVD collections. My older brother had an injury from playing baseball in high school, where his face got hit by a baseball. Brutal injury, ended up being okay. Great looking guy now. The face is all good, but it was really, really bad. And he basically had to be bedridden for several weeks. And I remember my neighbors bringing over, just because he has to sit on his bed all day, bringing over just like a huge container of all their DVDs. And I was pumped. It was like one of the best things that ever had happened to me at that time, because I have all these new movies I could explore. And all it cost was my brother to nearly lose an eyeball.
Yeah,
but I was happy with it.
Could have the best DVD collection in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like, to get some of these Tommy Boys and those kind of movies made now, it's just a different ball game.
Yeah. No, I want to bet. Yeah, and like all the Will Ferrell stuff.
Yeah, like movies
Anchorman,
like
Old School, like that type of comedy. My absolute favorite growing up.
Yeah.
It's gonna be sad if we kind of lose that.
Yeah,
lose
we
that
kind
part
of have
that
too. You know, like they just don't, like the Joe Dirts and they just don't make these weird like $40 million, $20 to $40 million comedies, and it sucks.
Yeah. All we have is Marvel and Star Wars.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's all these big franchises, because those are the ones that are gonna fucking cash in at the And of course, there's exceptions. Like the new Top Gun was great. I don't know if you saw that. But
I didn't see that, but people keep telling me I have to check it out, so I do.
It was really good.
Yeah,
it was really good.
I'm a huge Thrones guy, so I'm super into the new Thrones show.
Yeah, it's been good so far.
So that's one of the big franchises that I mean, the ending of the original show, I agree with the criticism there, basically. But but I think that franchise as a whole is one of the good ones of the franchise monster that's happening right now with like the Marvel Star Wars stuff. I think Thrones has the potential to be, probably the best of those big flagship.
Do they do anything in vinyl?
They do. They release their soundtracks on vinyl. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's a big market for the Thrones stuff and all the fantasy stuff, including like Star Wars and even like the Dune soundtrack, I think, is released on vinyl, but definitely Game of Thrones, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. They have incredible pressings of the soundtracks to those movies, and with all the cool inserts that we were talking about, like with Lord of the Rings stuff, there's inserts that have like basically posters of like the maps, and like everything is written in that like signature Lord of the Rings font and stuff. So cool. Yeah, there is a big market for soundtracks on vinyl, which we didn't touch on before, but yeah, that's rising just as much as traditional bands and stuff.
Yeah, I bet, because I said, these people who love this shit, they're in, man.
They're in, yeah. And I think it's a lot of people, and it's, part of me, my personality as well, they want to have a well-rounded collection, which is a centerpiece of their like living room, something that like if they're bored, they can kind of dive as deep into as they want, but also like when people come over, you can show off some cool stuff that you have. And so I've been doing like pop-ups around the city, selling like a mini record store at, little street festivals and stuff like that. And there is something to say. People are instinctively drawn to vinyl records. Like they'll walk past a rack of records and they like kind of stop and just like reach for it and want to poke around a little bit. There's something instinctual there that I think is driving this kind of renewed increase in the industry. And I share that instinct as well. I think they're just really, really cool. I love flipping around records, checking out front, back, what's on the inside.
Totally.
I think it's really nice.
It's not one of those things that I've gotten into, but it's one of those things where like I get the appeal.
Yeah.
There's some things you're like, I just don't understand. Like I get this. Like I do think this is something where it's like, all right, that's cool.
I think you should maybe give it a shot. And actually, I have a couple tips for people who maybe are considering getting in.
I was gonna say too, I wonder how a woman would feel hanging out with a guy who put on the Game of Thrones on vinyl. That's either
what do you mean? You don't think that would be appealing?
It's either like she thinks she's gonna get murdered, or he's the most sophisticated man in the world.
Yeah, well, I think I might have to try that out with my girlfriend at home. I'll see. So let's do some tips. So like I said at the beginning, there's a problem I think that's probably existed for a very long time in the music space and the vinyl space as well, where there's music snobs or vinyl snobs, which make people feel uncomfortable or like idiots if they don't know everything that's going on in specific like parts of the industry. So what I'm going to lay out here is a couple very simple tips that if you're trying to get into vinyl, I think it'll just give you a little bit more confidence about the hobby that you're getting into. So one, I'm not sure if you've stepped into this one yet. The plural is vinyl. It's not vinyls.
Oh, okay.
So that's one thing that, and again, I don't want to shame you for saying that, but if you say that, you're basically making yourself vulnerable to the vinyl snobs.
Oh, okay.
So you're exposing yourself. So it's vinyl. I have some vinyl. Let's check out some vinyl.
All right. So don't call everything an IPA. It's vinyl.
Yeah.
Very similar thing.
Absolutely. One, and I'm sorry to say this because I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. I would not recommend investing in one of those suitcase style record players. They are the cheapest for a reason. If you have one, again, not trying to shame you, but you're making yourself vulnerable to the vinyl snobs. They are typically not made very well at all. Part of the reason is because the speaker itself is attached to the player. That is not a good way to produce depth in the sound because it causes vibration on the table, which means basically the needle is having a harder time read the vinyl itself. Okay. So that brings me on to my next tip. If you do start a record collection, buy your first turntable. You're going to need your turntable and then separate speakers, not all in one, and put those speakers on a different surface than what the turntable rests on. So if you have a big table, so if we had a turntable on this and you had two speakers on either side, don't put the speakers on the same surface where the turntable is. Again, that goes back to the vibration that is caused by the speakers, which just is going to make the sound lower quality. And you'll notice an improvement if you do that. If you go from having your speakers on the same surface of your turntable to putting them either on stands or on a different table on the floor, the sound will improve. Then another thing that I brought up before, it's very unlikely that your grandparents' old vinyl collection is valuable. Feel free to dive into it, pick out what you like to listen to. Totally encourage that. Don't expect thousands of dollars. It's just not likely at all that they will have the Beatles butcher cover that we brought up earlier. And then the other thing I would say, join Facebook groups that are, centered on the vinyl record industry. There's several out there. I follow several of these Facebook groups. People just post, new stuff coming out, their favorite stuff from back in the day. You learn a lot that way. So just expose yourself to something like Facebook groups, or I'm sure you can find similar stuff on TikTok, all that type of thing. Just join online communities that are dedicated to vinyl. You'll quickly just passively learn a lot of information that will help you navigate the hobby. Yeah.
And now, where would you buy a record player from, though? Like, do you sell them, or do you?
I don't sell them. In the past, I can get them through my distributor. In the past, I have done that for friends and some of my members.
But they do produce new ones that are good quality. Okay.
Yes.
It's not just like, hey, you got to find an old one and make sure it works, make sure this is running great or whatever.
Yeah. So there are people, you can buy like refurbished old players. And kudos to you if you do that. There are some great ones out there for sure. But they're making great new turntables now. Audio-Technica, U-Turn, these companies are making great stuff. It's much like the vinyl industry, though. They are also under huge demand constraints where they're kind of struggling with making enough record players. So it's a good sign for the industry, but it's tough to keep up with the demand. So either things you might deal with stock issues or prices that are going up. But either of those two companies I mentioned are making great new stuff. And that's what I would recommend if you want to check out the hobby. And I'd love it if you did. It's a great hobby, and I'm just trying to be welcoming to a lot of people who want to
No, dude, I think this is very helpful. I think this was very informative. I mean, like I said, I'm not in it, but you laid it out pretty easily to understand what to do. And what title will people walk into your shop the most? Or like what classic title?
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
So Axis Boldest Love, Are You Experience, his first two releases. At least that's my favorite to send out to people who enjoy classic rock. I mean, those are just absolutely staples. I think he just revolutionized how an electric guitar can sound with those albums. Because that's the same time period of like Bob Dylan and stuff. So and I love Bob Dylan as well. But it's just, he really revolutionized that like psychedelic, harder, grittier electric guitar. Yeah. And if you're interested in classic rock, I think that's either of those two albums are absolutely essential for your collection.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
What's the one where if you play backwards?
That's Zeppelin, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And it says like, I am the devil. Yeah, whatever. Honestly, I wonder if that's a psyop to make Led Zeppelin look cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Maybe, yeah.
Like, I could see that at first being like, oh no, like now the parents aren't going to buy the 13-year-old the Led Zeppelin record.
Yeah.
But it's similar to how the industry did the parental advisory sticker on like the 90s albums that were coming out, where it totally backfires. That just looks badass. You know what I mean? Exactly. So if like you have this little kind of theory that if you play it backwards, it's going to summon the devil or whatever, that will, I guess, disincentivize some, like conservative Christian people from buying the record. But for most people, like if I heard that, I'd be like, this is fucking cool.
It's a different tweak.
Like
we talked about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about new school? Is it Taylor like we talked about, or is there someone else?
Yeah,
Harry
Taylor.
Styles?
Taylor, Harry Styles, absolutely huge. The new John Mayer album, Sob Rock, that was very, very popular. But there is small, like I mentioned Black Pumas earlier. They sold so many vinyl records. I think their label ATO Records made a commitment, I think, to making it affordable and investing in it a lot because they knew it was going to be a good record. And it's their debut, so it was a risk. Just making sure it was available to like retailers and stuff, and they did. And I see that all over. I send that to a lot of members. I see a lot of customers requesting it. I see it at record stores. I see it when people post pictures of their collection online. So that's an example, I think, of a really well placed bet, because I probably wouldn't have discovered that band if it wasn't for the vinyl, and I love them now.
That's cool. And how much is it to do the club?
Yeah, so it's $44 a month for 2 records a month. Everything is sealed, new, We do a very, very good job at curating to our members' specific tastes. Like I mentioned, you can get really detailed with your profile too to let us know what you like. So you can connect your Spotify account as well. So all that information we take in, and then we pick out 2 records that we're very confident you'll like based on what type of stuff you're into. And from the feedback we get, it's a nice little surprise that comes in the mail every month and helps people build well-rounded out collections of the type of music that they're really into.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's cool, dude. And I had this down too. What about this BTS and those kind of groups? Are they monster on vinyl?
It's interesting. I don't believe so.
No. Okay.
I wonder if it has something to do, but they have a huge American audience because I don't know if it's really if vinyl itself is really popular in Korea.
Yeah.
But they have a huge U.S. audience, so I don't know if that's just something not off their radar. It could be off of my radar, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, but I don't see that around.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure they've not made the same commitment to vinyl that like Taylor Swift has.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a pretty good idea. I think the BTS stands should maybe.
I think I just gave you an idea.
Yeah, maybe. All right, I'll pocket that one right now.
If you get to the billion, just toss me a couple bucks.
I'll give you a little taste.
All right. Yeah. Do we want to see if White Sox Dave's here? Want to take a seat?
Dave, what's up, man? There we go.
What are you? Is his mic running, Harry? Yep. Dave, what do you remember about this gentleman?
He offered me a joint, and I obliged him.
We were at Dead & Co., by the way,
Yeah,
so there's nothing out of the ordinary going on in that crowd.
Everybody. You were just high walking into that stadium.
Yeah.
Probably not even in the stadium. You would have been high at this office from being
Just
a mile away.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. But it was, how'd you enjoy the rest of the show?
It was, I said it many times and I've slept on it. I've seen a lot of good concerts. I think that was the best concert I've ever seen.
That's excellent. Yeah, I mean, it's up there for me as well. It's a huge, it's just an awesome experience going to those shows.
5 straight hours nonstop.
The crowd is so into it and so friendly. Everybody's dancing. My calves were sore for several days after that show.
Mine were too.
Yeah.
The best part was we got there and some vendor, he looked like a high school kid. He walked up to us and had a wristful of the pit tickets because ours were like the seats right behind the pit.
Yeah.
So we were like right on top of him. Bob Weir, fucking incredible. I've seen John Mayer like 100 times, and I've always said John Mayer's completely fine in concert, and I love John Mayer, but he was a different animal on stage with them.
Yeah, it's awesome to see him basically flex the muscles that he doesn't get to flex with his solo releases. And it's really cool how much he is, like, that's got to be so hard to adopt that catalog of music after just having a career, releasing his solo stuff. And he just dove headfirst into it. And I think that's really, really commendable. And he's made similar decisions along the way of his career. Like when there's like the John Mayer trio era. So that's when he was, Body is a Wonderland era. Then he goes on this whole tour and does an album release of just a stripped down version of a rock band, the John Mayer trio, with just an excellent drummer, Steve Jordan, who is actually the drummer for the Stones now. And then an excellent bassist.
He has Paolo. Paolo?
It's an awesome name, but I can't remember.
Yeah, it's sweet, but he's toured with The Who. I want to say the Stones. Yeah. He's been in like every rock band ever, and he's just a sessions bassist, and you watch him up there, and he's like on another planet.
Yeah,
with how good he is.
He looks kind of goofy too, which is how a bass player should look.
Right.
That's how a bass player should look. And then
he's got the real stoic, like John Entwistle vibes to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And then John Mayer pivots and that type of stuff, and then he releases those two, which are more like kind of like Western country sounding, Paradise Valley and Born and Raised.
Born and Raised is my favorite John Mayer album. It's just straight like twangy kind of new age bluegrass stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's how I first became a John Mayer fan. Those albums, I love that stuff. And I don't know if you saw, John Mayer did these like charity shows out in Montana because they had flooding there.
That's where, I have.
And he and I listened to those through one of the apps that it was streaming on, and he played the Born and Raised album in its entirety. Also did a dead set with Bob Weir, but both stripped down, just acoustic guitars. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
He's the GOAT. I love him, and anybody who says that, like he kind of, I don't want to say gets nickel-backed.
No,
but a little bit.
Yeah, people associate him with like Your Body's a Wonderland type of stuff.
He can do that. He can go the pop route and play the cheesy hits like that, or he can get on stage with like an all-time great revolutionary jam band like the Dead and seamlessly transition. Like he's up there and he works so hard. He's just soaked in sweat.
Yes.
His forearms, you can see him.
And he's like bouncing a lot too while he's playing, Yeah.
He's the best. I love him to death.
Yeah, I no argument for me there, man. Yeah.
That was good.
John Mayer
that
segment.
was interesting.
Yeah.
I don't like as like an outsider. I don't know. I guess I don't classify as like that poppy guy anymore. Just because I know he does that though.
He does everything.
Yeah.
Like his. Did he just come out with a new album?
Sob Rock.
Sob Rock's kind of the same thing. Like, New Light. The record company and like his people or something, they were arguing about how they wanted the music video for that to go, and I guess he himself just booked the studio time and got like basically an iPhone and some random intern high school kid as the editor, and he's like, I'm taking control of this, here's the music video. And it came, I mean, I don't care about music videos as much as the song, but like that's him.
Just
him
an example of his
on like a cartoon basically.
Yeah, and his just like he is committed to making his own creative choices.
Exactly right, and that's what he did with that album, like with the like kind of throwback '80s vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he just loves exploring different directions, and I think that's a great thing to see from a major pop star, because many of them do not have that type of like instinct.
They don't have the instinct, and I don't think hardly anybody could pull it off like he does.
Yeah, just super talented guy. He's the man.
And
what can I say?
Just a hilarious dude on top of it.
Yeah, he's great.
I saw him. I think it was him, but I could show it to you afterwards, but there's it's some hidden camera show or something.
Okay.
And he's sitting in a bar, and there's hidden cameras all over the bar, and it's in Connecticut where he's from. It's just some like dive bar, and he'll purposely pick out women that are clearly on dates with dudes, and the dude will go to the bathroom or something, and he'll sit down and just start like acting normal, like, and they'll be looking around like, oh my god, I'm sitting next to John Mayer, and he'll just start talking them up, like sweet talking them, and then he'll hand them their number. And then he'll get up and the boyfriend will sit back down, and the boyfriend's always in on it.
Okay.
And she'll like look around and like see if she should write down her number. And
just to like test her reaction. Yeah.
Test her reaction. Then he's like, hey, I'm John. You're actually on a hidden camera show. And naturally the boyfriend's, I'd be pissed. I don't care who it is.
It's a cruel move, but I could see how it's funny. Yeah.
It's funny though. And his Chappelle show stuff, he's so well rounded.
Yeah.
That is funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, Kyle, thanks, man.
Thank you very much, Ed.
One more
appreciate
time,
it.
let the people know where they could find to get the subscription and whatnot.
Black Box Record Club is the name of the service that I run. BlackBoxRecordClub.com. All the social stuff, Black Box Record Club, with the exception of Twitter. We are Black Box Records with a Z. My personal handle is Cleasy Matthiesen. And I would.
You look like a record shop owner.
Thank you very much.
I
had an internal debate going on whether I should do the ponytail or not today.
You had to.
So I'm glad that you agree.
Beautiful.
Thanks a lot again for having me, fellas.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks for that hit of that joint.
Absolutely. I'll see you on the field next year, maybe.
I'll be there. I'm not gonna. That's the first time I've seen Dedico with John, like I said, and I'll never miss it again. So long as they're at Wrigley.
Awesome.
So
That's
see you
great.
there.
Awesome stuff, guys.
Go get some records from Kyle. And you got pop-up shops, like you said.
Pop-up shop all over the city. We're at Beguile Brewing the first Sunday of every month. And we're going to be at different vintage markets and street fairs moving forward as well.
Awesome. Cool. That's great, man. And then, Dave, you music podcast, when does that drop and whatnot?
Thursdays on the guest list with Kenny Carkeet, Dante, and Colin Budney.
Sweet.
Kenny should be back. He just had twins. He's on a little hiatus, but
there you go. Go check that out too. Kyle, thank you. This is great.
Thank you.
Awesome. That's it, everybody. Thank you for listening. We will catch you next time.